Welcome to an encore presentation of The Obligation. In this episode, I sit down with Frank Cona, and we discuss being a man, being a father, setting an example in this world, and Catholicizing the mass media of our world to spread the Catholic faith. This show was recorded during the Sacred Heart Pledge Drive that runs through July. Warning. The radio broadcast you're about to hear was made by men and for men. It may at times seem a little rough around the edges, brash, and certainly not canonically approved by papal authority. But its content may indeed challenge you to become the man, father, husband God has called you to be. Listener discretion is advised.
And hello everybody and welcome to this very special Sacred Heart Share-a-thon here on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. My name is Bill Snyder. It's wonderful to be with you all. And we are very excited to have the host of The Obligation, Jason Murphy, with us right now. And he is going to be sharing with us his show live. So we're going to take you to him and his wonderful guest.
Welcome to another week of The Obligation. My name is Jason Murphy. We have a very special episode here. This is our first episode we are doing live. I don't know if it's a foreshadowing of things to come. I don't know. It might be the beginning of the end. Who knows where it's going to go. But anyway, we appreciate you all tuning in, especially during the Carolina Catholic Media Sacred Heart Share-a-thon Pledge Drive. I just got off of a great conversation with Keith Nestor from Down to Earth Ministries. Keith was a speaker at the previous men's conference here in Charlotte. And, we just had a wonderful conversation about leadership and Catholicizing, media out there. We have so much negative media and negative aspects of the internet and cell phones and the information technology explosion going on. But, as Catholics, it is our duty to get involved and Catholicize, and use that which we can. And using these airwaves to get out there and spread the message of Christ and Jesus Christ to the world and be a resource to other Catholics. So many folks out there, giving witness that, hearing things on the radio that are sparking questions and inspiring them to look further into the Catholic Church. I mean, for myself included, someone who had kind of gotten away from reading and studying like I should be. Now, with this show, I'm spending hours and hours a week, studying and researching canon law and liturgy and, moral and ethical questions and just so many topics coming up and, in the realm of church politics, church liturgy and the relation of our current political spectrum that's going on. So, so blessed to be here, for the Carolina Catholic Pledge Drive. And, if you're out there listening, we appreciate it. And if you're able, send a little, send a lot. We will take what you can get. Carolina Catholic Media has been going strong, close to 3 years, maybe pushing the 3-year mark. And we are getting out there, and we have a lot of content, more content than many other local Catholic radio stations across the country. I mean, EWTN, of course, is huge, has been around for a long, long time, but as far as individual markets, Carolina Catholic is making its footprint. But you can go online now to 1-800-857-2909. You can also go online to carolinacatholicmedia.org. All donations are tax deductible. Our share-a-thon is going to run today through tomorrow, June 24th, 6 p.m., which is lining right up with the Feast of the Sacred Heart. And there's many different pledge levels. We also have some gifts out there, for a one-time gift of $75 or more. Wingate University's men's polo. I think that's compliments of Dr. John Aquaviva's show Faith and Sport. For a one-time gift of $20, a copy of The Contemplative Stations of the Cross by Patchwork Heart Ministry. And that's our producer today, Bill Snyder. And for a one-time gift of $30, a copy of A Contemplative Las Posadas Advent Devotional. That is available in English and Spanish. So we appreciate it. Go online now, make that phone call. And we're going to get started with the live episode of The Obligation. And joining me once again, a very special guest. And I think we're bringing him back more than then the conversation. We're bringing him back just for the amazing radio voice he has. Frank Cona joined me a couple weeks ago. Frank is a Marine. He was spent a lot of time in Iran and Afghanistan. He's a Marine sniper. He also worked for a private military firm protecting the soldiers and offering assistance overseas. And he is a family friend. His parents are godparents to one of my daughters. And without further ado, the man with the amazing radio voice, Frank Cona, thanks again for coming into the obligation.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate being here.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. We're gonna forego the tinfoil hats today. We're gonna try to behave ourselves a little bit, but I can't make any promises.
Yeah, this is very disappointing. All the 5G waves are gonna wreak havoc on our conversation. So I'm worried.
I think your last 24 hours probably you're gonna take a little bit more of your conversation and your brain waves sitting in an airport for the last.
No, I got a solid 3 hours of sleep on an airport bench. I'm energized, ready to go.
So where were you coming back from, and what happened?
I was coming back from my brother-in-law's birthday party in Florida. I'm the godson to his kid, so I got pretty much press ganged into coming down there. I had a lot going on, but my family helped me get down there and get back here in a timely fashion.
Yeah, so you spent the night in Nashville.
Yeah. It's not a bad airport to sleep in.
No, Nashville's nice. It's a newer kind of a new up and coming city.
Yeah. And then at 5 a.m., they have really great country music that starts playing to get you out of bed, get you wake up.
And running. Yeah, no, that's great. Appreciate you coming on. Such a special week here. You pulled in right as I was wrapping up with Keith Nestor, so you heard a little bit about Keith's. Keith was a great speaker at the 2022 men's conference, and just lots of great ministries. Travels the United States praying the Rosary Crew, and depends on the accommodations and the generosity of folks who are part of that. And they'll say, "Hey, man, come this way," and they'll map out their route. And I think when he came up to to St. Thomas Aquinas for this past March men's conference, they take their RV, and he camped out there. And I think the family put him up for a couple nights, and then he left there, and so he traveled. So it's great spreading that ministry and making his way to the United States. So
that's cool. Yeah,
kind of cool. So we're coming off Father's Day. Were you in Florida for Father's Day with your dad? Was he down? Were y'all down there for that? Was last weekend? Or?
Yeah, that was last weekend. Me and my dad actually got to go to Mass together, and it was the Feast of Corpus Christi at the parish we went down there for. Okay. So it's a great procession, great Mass, and I got to spend it with my dad. So
that's awesome.
That. I mean, I'm not a father, but if I was a father, that would be the best Father's Day gift. I hope it was a good gift for him. Hope he still likes me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, that's every dad's goal, right? Is to set that example and of faith and live it with their kids. And I mean, honestly, that's one of my greatest fears would be the loss of faith for one of my children. I can't think of anything much worse. Obviously, my marriage, losing my marriage or losing a child or something, but the loss of faith. I shared a story on the Obligation Instagram yesterday. I was out with the boys. We were walking the beach, and we were looking for shark teeth because we were down at the beach as well on the North Carolina coast. And I didn't really learn about shark teeth until maybe about 5-6 years ago. I mean, I grew up in Louisiana. We'd go to Florida or Mississippi, Alabama, and that was just never something that we talked about or even looked for, or even knew were out there. And we even went to the North Carolina coast several years and never really even looked until one day, we were just kind of walking, and they said, "Oh, did you find any shark teeth?" And we said, "No, we didn't know you could." And so we kind of started, and Jude, my oldest, he was probably the only one at that point. He was 3 or 4 years old and didn't really understand it. So as we grew, it was kind of my little hobby, looking for these shark teeth. And as they've gotten older, they've become pretty good at it. And I mean, they'll find hundreds in a day, which is crazy. Like, you don't think they're out there, but a lot of people say, "Well, do you think there's sharks out there?" And I say, "Well, just take your finger, dip it in the water, taste it, and if it tastes salty, there's a shark in the water." And I can attest to that. And I don't do a lot of surfing anymore. I used to surf more, but I don't dangle my legs over the surfboard out in water that's over my chest deep, because I have caught some 10-foot, 12-foot sharks within 5 feet of the North Carolina coast, and I've seen the number of sharks coming up to the beach. I was fishing the other day, just right there up to my knees, and one came up and was about 3 or 4 feet from me, and I popped him on his head. He's about a 4-foot little reef shark, and he took off. And of course, he's just being curious. But they're out there. Sharks are out there, and if sharks are out there, the shark teeth are out there. So anyway, we were looking, and I was just standing there, and I was admiring, and I was just astonished, because they've actually gotten better than me at finding them. So
good.
My eyes probably are getting worse. So it's tough for me to see them here and there. And I was just thinking, what? That's what dads are. That's what men are about. I taught them that, right? They didn't know that skill or that, hobby. They didn't know anything about that until they learned it from me. And I was thinking, now they're doing it better than me. And my prayer is, and what this post was that I put on Instagram, was that I hope that my children are better than me in everything except sin, and especially the practice of their faith. And it just gave me, I just thought of that, and I'm like, man, that is our jobs, right? I mean, that's our duties. Wasn't that what your dad was doing when he was forming you? And now you, a man practicing his faith and able to go to Mass on Father's Day with your dad, and what a special gift,
such a blessing. Right? I don't have to go visit him at some apartment complex or anything. Parents are still together. They go to Mass together. I go to Mass with them. It's such a blessing. So.
Yeah, I mean, so your dad, he's a big Marine too, right? I mean, so you look at your dad's a staunch, solid Catholic man, Catholic gentleman, and
that's why I joined the Marines, because of my dad. I mean, my dad growing up was the man. He was a model for what masculinity was, and he wasn't a slouch or anything. Like he was a leader. He's a natural leader. He's masculine. He was a good Catholic, and I took all that as basically a model of how to be. And I kind of fell short in some areas, but just seeing him as a model for what you're supposed to be was tremendous.
Yeah. Your dad. One other similarity. We could bring your dad in here because he's got one heck of a raspy radio voice too. We even made the joke the other day that you such a great voice, even along the lines of Wolfman Jack. I think back in the '70s, Wolfman Jack. He was spinning the albums and coming on.
American Graffiti.
So no, that's great. It has to start in our families. It has to start in our homes, and. If we can't lead in our homes, there's no way we're going to be able to go out and lead and in society or lead in our church environment. We have to be leaders in that domestic church. That's where it starts. If we can't lead there, and I mentioned to Keith, I was coming back from the beach and listening to kind of a Christian radio station, and they have some really good talk, speakers on there, or ministers, and they were talking about leadership and men's ministries, and he was just saying, across the board. Faith and doctrine is being attacked. It's not just the Catholic Church. We've dug in, and we're going to continue to dig in and discuss it. But across the board, doctrine is under attack in all realms of Christian denominations, the Baptists or the evangelicals, and he made a point. His point was, a real test of a true leader, a real leader is who's following, and where are they going, and and if you've got we talk about our dads, and you're following your father, and you went in the Marines to emulate your dad, and you've lived your Catholic faith, and that is that's it. That is what it's about. Not just our sons, it's our daughters. That example has to extend to them. Our daughters crave for that affection, and that's hard for a man. It's hard for and you've got 2 sisters, and another brother, so it's 4 of you, and for a father, of course, it's different with the girls. They crave for a different type of affection. The boys, they want camaraderie. They want leadership. They want discipline. Yeah. We want discipline.
Absolutely.
Human beings want discipline. We want to be led. We want to be disciplined. And kids want that as well. And when you don't provide that, well, you see what we have out there in the world.
Yeah, the family is being attacked right now, just like Our Lady warned us. Right now, Homer Simpson dad is the kind of dad they want you to be. If you look at all these popular sitcoms, the dad is an airhead. And he's fat and out of shape, and he can't get anything right. And it's the mom that's kind of put in the position of a trembly chihuahua that starts barking and wetting itself when the mailman comes to the door. Like, I have to kill the mailman. I'm in charge here. I don't want to be in charge. I'm 7 pounds. I'm ill-suited. But they feel like they have to because the dad's an airhead.
That's right.
And so that's really just part of the bigger attack on the family. I mean, the family being like an icon of the Holy Trinity.
Yes.
I mean, can you imagine the Blessed Virgin Mary talking to Saint Joseph the way some of these sitcom moms talk to their husbands?
Yeah.
Doesn't that just strike you as totally absurd? But that's what they want. And instead of Leave It to Beaver, which I guess is, a little better, dad is respected. People ask his advice. He comes home from work and people like him. They're happy to see him at least. But now the model of dad they want is Homer Simpson.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate. We see that. And I see on a regular basis, I see these dads, and they just want to be these, and I hate to quantify them, these kind of just go along, get along dads. They just want to be Johnny Feel-Good.
Right.
Don't want to upset anybody. Want to make sure everybody's happy, because it's all about being happy, Frank.
Right.
It's all about being happy, and as long as you don't upset anyone else and you're happy, that's what. And that's not it,
And like you were saying with the boys, like ironically, the lack of discipline will make men really unhappy. I saw that in the military.
Yeah.
You have a soft leader that doesn't enforce discipline,
right,
and doesn't have his head on straight. Everybody resents him, and nobody's happy at the end of the day. The mission doesn't get accomplished.
Yeah. Yeah, no, back to with the girls, with my girls specifically, it takes effort. I'm not a super affectionate guy. A lot of guys aren't. Most guys aren't. We're kind of we're kind of quiet. We're kind of like, as long as the boat's not rocking, things are good. But we got to pay attention, right? And so it's not enough to just kind of come in and like even my 1.5-year-old, our youngest. She will squeal until I look at her in the eyes, because they get in the habit, like anybody. You come in the house and you're busy and it's been a crazy day and you're just trying to make your way. It's like, okay, hey guys, I'm back, but I still haven't checked out, right? I still haven't clocked out. I shouldn't say checked out. Maybe I should say I am checked out of the family, and I'm still checked in at work. So I'm distracted. Maybe text messages and phone calls are coming through, and I'm trying. Hey, how's everybody doing? But my little 1.5-year-old, she'll squeal. And that squeal, God gave us these perceptive little things in our mind. And once you have kids, you'll get this too. But God gave them, so that we will focus on them, because the kids will squeal and they'll scream, especially like when they're hungry and when they need a diaper change or when they want your attention. And it pierces, and I don't know, maybe I'm just very sensitive, but I don't think I'm special. But it pierces a certain particular part of your brain that you gotta pay attention. You gotta, and so, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. And she's down there looking at me, waiting, and I might like pat her on the head, but if I don't look at her in the eye and make that contact, it's you can just see the difference. And all the girls, they need that affection, that eye contact. The boys, I can come up, put them in a headlock and pop them on the head. I'm sure your dad did the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's guys, that's a different kind of affection. That's just an acknowledgement, right?
Yeah.
Guys don't need a lot of that typically. They just need like, hey, I'm here. Give me a high five. Give me some dab. I'm here. We don't need that emotional affection, but the girls, they got to have that. And so we've got to be aware of that, and we've got to give that, because just like if we don't raise our kids, someone else will, and the world will.
Yeah.
And if we don't give the affection to our daughters, the world will, and we know where that ends up.
Yeah.
So the world is there, and definitely we'll take them and we'll give that affection, and we'll definitely not use and abuse, like I was talking about earlier. Our Lord will use and abuse us, for the greater glory, but the world will use and abuse us and throw us away. But anyway, we are here, live episode of The Obligation. Our producer, Bill Snyder, back behind the scenes, running the show, running the Share-a-thon. Bill, we really appreciate you being here with us. Frank Cona in the studio, sitting with me for our first live episode. We are in the midst of the Sacred Heart Share-a-thon on Carolina Catholic Media. The phone number to call in and donate is 1-800-857-2909. You can also go online and make your tax-deductible donation at carolinacatholicmedia.org. The Share-a-thon is running until tomorrow, June 24th at 6 p.m., which is the Sacred Heart, according to the Novus Ordo rite, the Latin, the rite of the Church. We're not talking about the traditional Latin Mass. I know that the Sacred Heart was, last Sunday, but it's transferred with the feast of the precious body and blood, which was celebrated last Sunday in the church, and so tomorrow will be the Sacred Heart. We have lots of gifts for any donation, any size. So go online, make that donation, make it count. We really appreciate your support. We are alive and well and thriving and sending out Catholic message and content to the folks of the Charlotte and surrounding areas. WCGC is the call sign for AM 1270, where Catholics grow in Christ. So we're here. Frank, you're back in Charlotte. Spend a little time in Florida. We're talking about dads and leadership and fatherhood. And I had an interesting story, an interesting event with my kids. I had 4 of them down at the beach. My wife had to come back to Charlotte, so she took the baby Ella, and she took Anna together. And so I had the other 4. So I had Jake, who's 4, and Joel, who is 9, and Ava, who's 10, and Jude, who's 14. And I had to close my eyes and think on that. Now, don't ask me their birthdays right now. It's a lot. 6 kids is a lot. I love my kids, but it's a lot of information packed up there. But anyway, so I had them. So our plan was to go fishing. And sometimes we'll go out fishing. We'll go out to the Gulf Stream. And from where we are, it's about a 65 or 70-mile trip out there. And all of them have been out there. I've actually been out there with my 4-year-old out 70 miles, and we've caught fish. So
great.
Pretty cool stuff. Kind of adventurous. My dad was an adventurous man, and I kind of inherited that. So our plan was to go. So I guess Tuesday morning we were going to get up around 3:30 or 4 a.m. and head out, and that's kind of our typical way that we do it. And then we'll go out and we'll be out there by maybe 7 o'clock, something like that, and start fishing. So my daughter Ava, she is not as adventurous as the rest of us. She's very conservative, which I'm very thankful for, because my daughter Anna is going to jump when you say jump and not going to ask, what's below the surface. We're just, she's just going to go. She's going to go for it. She's adventurous. My other children are kind of moderate there. Joel's a wild man. He's going to be a adventurous guy. So anyway, we're sitting there, and Ava's a little downtrodden. She's a little upset. She's missing mom. And we're talking about going fishing, and she's been out there before. And the last time she went out there was actually pretty cool. On our way out there, they had a SpaceX launch out of Cape Canaveral down in Florida.
Cool.
And so while we're heading out, we see this glowing thing up in the sky, and we slow down the boat. We look, and we try to figure out. We realize it's a SpaceX launch. So we were able to see this launch from the ocean. Probably at that point we were about 40 miles out. So it was really, really cool. So she got to see that, got to see some really cool fish we caught that time. So she's been out there, but she's, again, a little hesitant. So I'm doing my dad's speech. I'm trying to talk to him about, in life there's, certain things you'll remember in life, and you'll have vivid memories of certain things, and other things, monotonous things. A lot of people go through life and they just live this monotonous life, and they're really not going to have any big milestone memory moments. It is what you make it, right? I'm not talking about being dangerous, and I'm not talking about putting them in harm's way, but there's times in life where you want to just kind of do something off the grid. And I was telling them, like, one of the examples for me was when I was in my early 20s, and I had a group of guys and we packed our backpacks and we hiked into the mountains for several hours, and we found a spot near a waterfall and we camped out. And I can tell you every detail about that trip, all sorts of details about that trip. And that was 25 years ago. Could I tell you what I did last week? On a day-to-day basis, I couldn't tell you what I was doing early this morning, usually. It just kind of gets filed in, and we just keep cranking it out. So I was sitting there, trying to embellish, say, hey, you've got to, try new things, and these are memory-making times and all this. So they took it to a different level. So while I'm trying to inspire my daughter just to be motivated to get up in the morning and be ready to go fishing, they kind of put their heads together. They go into this little group, and they come back and they say, Dad, what if we go out there tonight and spend the night out on the ocean?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was still about 6 o'clock, so it was full daylight. And I was putting, I know, I mean, I'm the type of guy, Frank, if you called me up, if I'm on my way home today and you say, hey, I just got a free helicopter ride, and we're going to go up and we're going to parachute out over Crowder's Mountain, I'm going to say, what time do I show up? I might be freaking out a little bit, but I'm the kind of guy, if something like that comes along my path, I'm going to jump on it.
So why would you pass up something like that, something unique?
Yeah, right. And so I said, well, okay, I could do that. And I said, but you're going to have to ask your mom. So, Dad's got to defer to Mom. Got to make sure Mom's okay with it, right? And Joanne's, she's not much of an adventure taker. Like, Joanne had never been on an airplane till we met. So,
really?
So, when, and she brought, there's she became Catholic, right? I mean, the great adventure. She was a Protestant, Baptist, and she took, a ride on the greatest adventure of becoming Catholic, by, our relationship. So, which I'm forever grateful, eternally grateful for. And now we're, raising our 6 kids in the faith. So a beautiful thing, beautiful testimony. So I said, call Mom. So Mom answered, and she was like, of course, well, no, that's crazy. And I said, well, it's a little more dangerous going out at 3 or 4 in the morning in pitch black. I mean, we have a lot of resources on the boat. We've got radar, we've got infrared camera, we've got a lot of different things, multiple redundant radios and stuff. So it's safe, but we can't see under the water, and there's probably more risk, honestly, between all of these options of just driving back and forth to the beach. In all honesty,
no, yeah,
of
definitely
something really happening.
Yeah, in the car.
So it's very calculated, very safe. So I said, I feel okay about it. I think we can do it. So she's like, all right, but that sounds crazy. So the kids were already like packing their little bags, and we head out about 6:30, and we got out about 20 miles out. We didn't go too far, so we're still within sight of the lights on the beach, and we could see the closest ship to us was about 12 miles away, which is really not far. You see it; it looks like it's right there. I mean, a big freighter ship. Of course, we're not in the shipping channel or anything. We anchored out, got to see the sunset. We prayed the rosary together, watching the sun go down. My daughter, Ava, the one who was not even wanting to go fishing at that point, is now 20 miles out in the ocean, in the middle it's not in the middle of the ocean. I don't feel out in the middle. To me, it feels like out in the middle of a lake. I mean, that's just what I feel like. I mean, there's a boat there. I can hear radio chatter. I can see lights on the beach. We can't see the beach, but we can see the tower lights. And we're praying the rosary, and I'm just thinking, this is amazing. And so we took this great adventure, and I was listening earlier. We had one of a talk, on before I spoke with Keith Nestor. We had Jonathan Fanning, who is an author and a speaker. He's an entrepreneur and a parent. He also has been featured on TEDx. He's written several books, and his talk that he was doing this morning was who are you becoming? But he told a story about having Brave and Daring Day, which is kind of funny because I was going to talk about this. This fishing trip with the kids here anyway, but hearing him talk about it, he had Brave and Daring Day. Now his daughter, and him, the brave and daring for them was to go try something new at the playground and climb something that his mom wouldn't let her climb. And so they did it, and it was a challenge, but it faced a challenge and they overcame it. And they were able to do something that they might not thought had been possible. So it was a great tie-in. It was a great time, but I mean, just bringing all that back to adventure, and the great adventure, of course, is our faith. Right. I mean, looking around, standing up to the world and society and where everything is going, that, in my opinion, that is the great adventure. Us sitting right here, publicly proclaiming we are Catholic, we're broadcasting Catholic information, we're talking about the most important things in the world right now, talking about our faith, and salvation story. What else? What's greater than that? What's greater challenge, and what's than our faith?
Nothing. That's it.
And the distances and the lengths we'll go to preserve that faith and live that faith, especially in these times when the world would have us just stomp it out, basically tell us Christianity's dead. I think there was a movie out a few years ago, God is Dead.
That's every movie now. I mean, everything that comes out is loaded with blasphemy. Which is worse than murder, by the way. It's just a horrible, horrible crime. And these people just spew blasphemies during movies now. I mean, pretty much all of them are at least implicitly anti-God. Yeah. Anti-God, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, speaking of these challenges and this kid, they want to trust and they want to follow. And, we got to be careful as and not just fathers, because Frank, you're not quite there yet. But just being an example and a leader in your small community, in your friend circle or work circle or church circle. I mean, those are high callings, right? I mean,
yeah. I'll tell you a story about my dad.
Yeah, that's what I want. I was about to ask. Yeah.
So we, he was really great at screening the media that came in to the house. He didn't have any filth, any blasphemy, none of that. So he used to record TV movies with a VCR, and then we watch them. And he had Top Gun.
There you go.
And I was into fighter planes as a kid, but it was only the fighter plane sequences of the movie, and his cut was 20 minutes long.
Okay.
So I joined the Marines. I have this roommate, and my roommate was telling me, "Hey, man, you want to watch Top Gun tonight?" And I was like, "Wait, you know about Top Gun? That like experimental indie art house movie that's only like 17 minutes long?" And he was like, what are you talking about?
Wow,
It's 2 hours
great.
long. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, it's just there's no plot development. There's no like real
There's no
characterization.
Kelly McGillis?
He was like, no, there's the romance he had with the teacher. I was like, what are you talking about? There's no women in Top Gun. He's like, they had the beach volleyball thing. I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
So I watched the movie. I was like, whoa, my dad's cut is way better than the actual version of this movie.
Yeah.
And my dad just went around
great.
editing and kind of reappropriating
Wow.
the culture that surrounded us so that it was at least not offensive,
Yeah.
but also so that you would get some greater meaning out of it. And about a year ago, I got some video editing software, and I made some VHS artifacts and put a sound compressor up to my computer, and I made a VHS if I'd cut the Chris Cona Top Gun
Oh, that's so cool.
director's cut. Yeah, so I don't know. A lot of that stuff your
Yeah.
dad does to keep you safe,
Yes.
but also to introduce you to things the right way really sticks to your ribs.
Yeah. No, that's a great story.
Yeah.
Chris Cona, I can see that. And,
Oh yeah.
I mean, we go to great length as well, and we have to be very careful, with what content and how it when it's brought into the house or how it's brought into the house. Because
Yeah.
eventually, some way, your child's going to be exposed, whether it's at school or even God forbid, in a church setting, there may be something said that your kid may not be aware of, and that's going to come home, and how is your child going to go about finding out about it? Do they feel comfortable coming to dad or mom and saying, hey, I heard this, what is this about? Or are they going to go and find it, and find it in a way that, and that's happened. That I've seen it happen with my own kids, even in grade school, hear some kids talking about this or that, and and maybe not even in such a vulgar thing, just a kind of a slang term for something, and then you put that slang term into Google,
Oh yeah.
and Google's gonna just spit it out in a graphic way, and we've seen that, and so it's you got to have those times. You got to be able to trust. Your kids have to be able to trust you.
So as a dad, do you think there's a danger in going too far in trying to put your kids in a bubble, or do you think that's a good thing? Because I still haven't had my mind made up really about where to go and how far to go with trying to shelter your kids from all the nonsense.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that I think about a lot, because I've seen and I've heard, and I can be witness to that into a certain respect. I went to an all-boy Catholic high school, and it was very sheltered, very protected. And even though we were nominal Catholics, my parents still had the thoughtfulness to put me in a Catholic school, and especially a all boys school. I wanted to go to the co-ed school. Most of my close friends, went to the co-ed high school, which was still a good school. It was a Catholic school as well. But the educational benefits and just the discipline and things that were at the all-boy high school, outweigh that, and my parents really pushed, and so I ended up going. But that being said, my freshman year, my mother, we moved up to North Carolina. My stepfather and her, they decided to move, so we ended up moving up to Charlotte, and I enrolled at North Mech. So that's in North Charlotte, and that's a public school. And again, even though I was in that environment, and we were nominal Catholics, I really, we really didn't go to church every Sunday. When I was presented marijuana in the bathroom as a freshman, as a 15-year-old, and around some other stuff, I didn't know what it was, but I knew I shouldn't. I kind of knew enough about it, and I didn't get involved with it at that point. So I think,
thank God.
so there was enough there. Now, as far as the bubble, I guess it's two sides there. I guess that that kind of bubble, I think it provided some insulation and protection of choices, even though I didn't have a good spiritual grounding. But then as I moved back to Baton Rouge and finished high school there, and then went off to LSU. I kind of went crazy. But I don't think I went crazy because of the insulation, the discipline. I went crazy because I had no faith. And I just succumbed to everything around. And, of course, coming from the environment, it was a very disciplined environment. And when you have discipline, but it's not really backed by a lot of strong faith, it only works so long, whenever the temptation comes around. That discipline is good and it's better than nothing, but it has to be discipline grounded in our faith and in Scripture and in our the Catholic Church perspective. So, looking at my own kids, we are very protective from the eyes of the world. You would say we are extremist. Dr. Ray Garundi, who will be on tomorrow at 11 for the Share-a-thon, and I'll be speaking with him. Don't miss that. That's going to be a great conversation. He called me a Neanderthal the last time I talked to him because my kids don't have cell phones.
Oh, yeah, right.
And my oldest is 14 going on 15. I have not put that in their hands, and I'm not going to until I deem it necessary, and that, of course, I can trust my child.
Yeah, thank God.
Now, where does that put me? My child, they're going to be exposed to it at some point. At some point. And I've told them this. I said, Jude, David, Joel, Anna, Jacob, Ella, all of y'all. My duty as a father is to make sure you know the faith. I've got to do everything I can while you're here with me. And I don't know how long that's going to be. It might be till you're 18, it might be 19, maybe 20, 22, 23. I don't know. Maybe after 23, we might have to have a conversation if you're still with me. I'm never going to kick you out unless you just become like a lazy bum. And then I'm going to kick you out. And my mom kicked me out, and I wasn't really a lazy bum. I'd gone into the seminary and I really didn't have a plan put together. And she said, "You got 2 weeks." And
oh wow!
And my 2 weeks came. My 2 weeks went. I didn't have a plan, and she's like, "Well, you're gone by Friday." And I wouldn't be sitting here right now because I wouldn't have gone out and made my way in the world and found my way and worked as hard as I worked to establish
the comfort zone is murder to a man's spirit. I mean,
I've got a friend who's going on 50 who really never got out because he never was forced to get out, and very talented, very smart individual, but just kind of stayed there. And honestly, I probably would have stayed there. So that's kind of digress there. But back to with my kids, I'm not going to force them out, but as long as they're within my house, I'm going to do everything in my power to instill faith and morals and ethics and discipline into their lives. And I was very, very blunt the other day with my oldest, of course, 14 going on 15. You've been there. I've been there. We know everything at that age.
Oh, yeah.
I told him, and maybe I was a little strong in telling him and how I told him, I said, if I can't do it, I will bring other adults in who can, or I will ship you to someone who can. Because at that point, I'm going to say, I have done everything in my capability and I am not able to. I'm not going to kick a dead horse. I'm not going to continue beating that horse into the ground if I can't get it up.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it over to someone else. I'm going to turn it over potentially to a priest or a Catholic psychologist, or I'm going to send them to a boarding school, a Catholic boarding school, because I have that responsibility and that duty, and I feel so strongly about it that I'm not going to be that parent. I am not going to be that dad that just says, "Oh, well, I can't make them do it, so I guess that's the way it is." Not me, brother.
Yeah.
Not me. So, back to this bubble. So no cell phones, right? I'm not going to put that in my hands. I know how addicted I am to the stupid thing. I know the amount of content that pops up randomly that's tempting to me.
Oh, it's
Am
insane.
I going to put that in the hands of my 14-year-old? Why? And that's on the old end of the spectrum of kids. Kids in second and third grade, 10 years old. Parents are just like, "Oh, it's what everyone's doing." No, that's crap. I'm sorry. I know we're on the radio. I shouldn't have said that. But you do not. I mean, how can you put that access?
You didn't say anything wrong.
How can you give that access to a child that has the brain the size of a pea with no morals and no ethics, and now you've just given them a plug-in to the world.
Let me tell you a really
bring
insane anecdote I read on the internet. There was this mom posting on Reddit, and she said, "My daughter won't look at me. She won't talk to me. She doesn't say my name, but the only time she'll come up to me and say something to me is when she wants something, and she'll say, Adexa." And she's like, "What's that word mean?" She was calling her mom Alexa. Because they were so plugged into iPad's voice activation stuff. It's really like freakish George Orwell 1984 type stuff we're going through right now.
It is, and back to this, this kind of like, oh well, that's just the way it is. I am starting to hear stories from people very close to me about friends of friends or family friends whose children, 10 to 12, 14 years old, that are considering, transitioning genders.
Yikes.
And so the parents are saying, well, we sent them to a psychotherapist or a psychologist, and the psychologist said, just go with it. Just go with it. And these parents are saying, oh, well, they want to be called, Bob, but, or they want to be called Bob, but, it's their name's Betsy, or their name's Joe, but they want to be Josephine. And we're just, that's what we're doing. Like, you're condoning it. How can you allow a 10-year-old, my 10-year-old can't go to the toilet properly, okay, and flush the toilet. My 10-year-old can't open the refrigerator and put something back. My 10-year-old, how are you going to give the choice to choose their sexuality?
Yeah, that's insane.
If you don't know your sexuality, you have no grounds, no basis of anything. Well, if you don't even know the most basic piece of who you are.
Yeah, I mean, when I was 8 years old, I thought I was Indiana Jones, and that was fine.
I thought I was Batman.
Yeah, and that's okay, because there's no danger of you becoming Indiana Jones or Batman. There's no danger. It's a harmless fantasy. But when the fantasy becomes something that's very real, something that the police can come to your house and shoot you and take your kid to enable, it's something that can literally happen. It's worse than playing with fire. I mean, it's very bad.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at this, and back to our point about kids wanting to be disciplined and kids craving that, and Catholics wanting to be led, men wanting to be led, and if the parents aren't going to teach and aren't going to lead their kids, they're not fulfilling their obligation.
Right.
That is their duty. And again. We try to be forthright. You want to have conversations with your kid. You want to bring up things. You want to address things because you want them to be able to come to you. Because if they don't go to you, they're going to go to others. And if they don't go to others, they're going to bottle it up. And I mean, look at the rate of suicide attempts and suicide amongst kids. I've even heard that in my own family. We've had issues with that.
Oh,
man. People under 20 years old. Because they feel like no one's there, no one understands, no one to talk to. And it's you got to have those conversations, and they're not easy. Like, the kid's going to look at you like you're crazy when you come to them with a topic that you have to talk about. But I mean, these are things that are real that you have to talk about and you have to bring up. And it's so interesting to see. When we get together in the evenings, we have dinner and we usually sit down and we'll pray the rosary together. But before we pray the rosary, we'll have like family meetings. And I would call it, my wife or I would, typically begin, when we started this, we'd start the family meetings like, hey, we got to have a talk.
Yeah.
You got to start doing something about this trash in your bedroom. You got to be doing something about the way you're treating your brother or sister. You got to be doing something about, the way you're, not paying attention during the rosary or not cleaning up after, whatever, all a number of things. But interestingly enough, the kids will come to me or come to Joanne and say, hey, can we have a family meeting before we pray the rosary tonight? Like, they crave that. They want stability. They want discipline. They want boundaries.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's, maybe one of the other kids is being, unfair with them. Or maybe, maybe something happened at school. Maybe, and those are, for the kids to be able to feel comfortable. And I think that's the thing. That's it. You got to be careful. You got to have discipline and you've got to have correction, but you've also got to have that love and that side. When I with my oldest, with Jude, he's 4 years older than all the rest. I was probably a lot more hardcore with him than the other kids. And I think most parents would tell you, their firstborn, they probably were, but you got to find that balance. I would, kind of go off. And now I realize, like, if I'll go in there and I'll give a pop air, I would probably take a little more too emotion involved, when I would correct Jude. And now I make sure it's like one good one or maybe two good ones, but you got to have that control. But then after that, I'm going to go up to him, I'm going to give him a big hug and say, hey, I hate disciplining you. I hate taking this away from you. I hate doing this. Like, this is the last thing I want to do is take it. It pains me for you to experience any sort of pain, whether it's a physical pain or whether it's a neglect pain, like I'm taking something from you, and or a loss pain. If I'm taking your, whatever stupid little thing, whether I'm putting you in your room and you don't get to go to the party, or whether you're gonna have to sit this out and not go with mom to go do this or do that. Like, I don't like doing that. No parent will tell you they enjoy disciplining their kid, but if you don't, you're just gonna make it worse. So it's such a balance. It's such a balance there. But it's the same in the church, right? I told you, we were talking about that the other day. Catholics want stability. Catholics want leadership. We want discipline. And we are realizing around us that, over the past 60 years, I'm saying 60 now. We were saying 50 for a while, but doing the math, 60. Past 60 years, the discipline has been thrown out the window.
Yeah.
And whatever floats your boat kind of has been introduced in a lot of ways. Yeah. And
unless you're part of some kind of traditional community, then the discipline is applied very strictly.
It is. It's
unjustly.
It's unwavering. Whether it's in regards to the liturgy, or it's regards to the music, or the teachings, the doctrines of the faith. They are immovable, right? They're immovable.
Right.
And what we've seen is just this chipping away at orthodoxy and this chipping away at formality, which is the reason why I'm sitting here today, and it's the reason you're sitting here today, is because you found the traditional Latin Mass. I found the traditional Latin Mass. I was brought up in a very lackadaisical, laid-back, Protestantized environment that did not draw me in.
Yeah, same. And just the contempt that I had for the equivalent of the cool parents down the street that let their kids do whatever and stay out till 3 a.m. It's just really upsetting to see, especially when you look back in history and you see what the church was. All the great things they did, all the discipline they had. I mean, the laws of these old countries were formed by the church and what they believed. And now it's like you can barely say anything as a priest or a prelate or bishop or anything that the world and the laws of the world doesn't come down on you for.
Yeah. They say that the Catholic Church is the largest religion, right? And then I think the second group is fallen away Catholics.
Oh, really? That's bigger than Islam?
Maybe Christian denominations.
Oh, okay, got you.
Christian denominations,
yeah.
Is fallen away Catholics, and that's a tragedy. And I saw a funny picture the other day, but it was a real picture. It was a picture of a Christian denomination. It was called Transformation Church. And okay, that doesn't sound too bad, right? I mean, I guess from a Protestant perspective, transformation. We're transforming from sinners to Christians and living lives of faith. But it was an image of one of the Transformers, like a Transformer.
No.
What is there? Decepticons and what are they?
Ultron.
Ultron.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. It's one of there's like two camps. There's like you have Decepticons and something other cons.
And the good ones, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
but they're all Transformers, I guess. Or maybe the good ones are Transformers and the bad ones are Decepticons. I don't know. One of the other.
Is this a gimmick of some
kind?
No.
Well, apparently a gimmick of some sort. But the church actually had a sign, and it was and it used that kind of image of the robot of the Transformer.
Are they referencing like the Dead Sea Scrolls where St. Paul wrote about Ultron coming from the moon and he transformed from a Camaro to a giant robot?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I read about that.
You snuck your tinfoil hat in here. That's what you did. That's what you did. Oh, man, you're here. You're listening to a live broadcast of The Obligation coming to you live from the Carolina Catholic Media Studio in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is our first live episode. Amazing. amazing. We're having a great time sitting here talking to Frank Cona. If you're out there listening, maybe for the first time, maybe you're just scrolling through and you found us, well, hang on. We're just going to take a little roller coaster ride through Catholicism and our faith. But ultimately, for the greater glory of God, we're going to talk about our duties as men, as fathers, as husbands, and that's the show. That's the obligation. That is what we started it as. That's just kind of conversation between guys, living the faith, struggling, daily issues, what's going on in the world, what's going on in your lives, your families, your kids. We're broadcast from WCGC. That is Where Catholics Grow, out of Belmont, North Carolina, on AM 1270, and of course online at www.carolinacatholicmedia.org. If you're out there and you want to make a donation, help keep us alive and well on the radio, keep this Catholic content live. We have such a number of shows, so many shows. There's other men's shows out there. We have Faith and Sport with Dr. John Aquaviva. We have The Remnant with Ray Haywood, and our producer for the day, Bill Snyder. A ton of shows listed there, many more than most Catholic radio stations across the country. But yeah, we're running this pledge drive, and you can make that donation at carolinacatholicmedia.org, or you can call in and make that donation, if that's easier, at 1-800-857-2909. All donations are tax deductible. We are going to run through tomorrow, Friday at 6 p.m. This episode right here, Frank, we're doing live. This is off the.
Oh wait, it's live? What?
Yeah.
You didn't tell me that.
I know. Whoops. We're here live, and instead of tomorrow at 5 p.m. is usually our show time. Fridays at 5, but we're coming to you live today. So the pledge drive will run through tomorrow, and then you'll hear this show replayed, all next week, and. We've just continued to go. We've got, like I said, we've got Dr. Ray Garundi coming on tomorrow at 11. We have Father Colin Blatchford from Courage International. He'll be on with me at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And Father Colin Blatchford with Courage. Courage is a ministry that is for same-sex attraction Catholics who are struggling to live their faith and live it, according to the call of the church. Right? They're not. Just like us as men, as with same or heterosexual tendencies, sin is sin, and whether it's outside of marriage or with a man or with a woman, we're all called to holiness and to sanctity and celibacy according to our way in life and our vocation in life. But he will be talking and kind of give a perspective of pride, this whole Pride Month, that the world has just taken and thrown upon us, and that we're basically all supposed to accept this as just the norm. That's just the way it is. No, he is going to be telling us what the Catholic Church's perspective of this, especially coming from a ministry that is there for homosexual Catholics and people in general, to kind of, this is not what you're called to. This is, if they are there, we acknowledge that those tendencies and those attractions are there, but we have to live them according to the gospel.
Yeah,
and
thank God for that, because
right?
I mean, the way that people become homosexual in a lot of cases is through suggestion and by telling people that it's okay. You can look at the skyrocketing rates of homosexuality in young kids, like you said.
Yes.
They're being told they can transition, they can be homosexual, they can do whatever they want.
Right.
And surprise, surprise.
Yeah, they're still unhappy. Yeah, give them what you perceivably think they want. They do not want to be able to do whatever they want to do.
True.
That's a downward spiral. They want discipline. They want to be be brought up proper. And again, back to this with the church. We've talked about this so many times on the show, and especially these days, we want leadership. We want Catholic leadership. We want our bishops to be bishops. We want our pope to be pope. We want our priest to be priest. But like we've said before, like Archbishop Fulton Sheen said before, it's not going to be the bishops who up the church, who revert the church and stabilize things. It is not going to be the bishops. It's not going to be the priests. It's going to be the faithful. The faithful have to be faithful and have to lead, and we have to ask for that. We have to let our leaders know. Because otherwise we're just falling into the same bureaucracy that our world is. If we sit back and let the bureaucrats run our government and our political system, well, you've seen where that's gone for the last 2 years, and where it's probably going to go for the coming up 2 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, Speaking of that, these different denominations and just the way the church has kind of, peeled back its reverency and its orthodoxy over the last few years. We've had so many abuses. It reminded me, and I brought it in today, is 2 Timothy, chapter 4, verse 3-5. For the time will come when people will not tolerate sound doctrine, but will, following their own desires and insatiable curiosity, will accumulate teachers, and will stop listening to the truth and will be diverted to myths. But you be self-possessed in all circumstances, put up with hardships, perform the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. That is some strong words by St. Paul. And I'm sure Christians have looked at that scripture over the years, and probably can relate it to their times. But even more now, when Christianity, even back years in the past, at least they knew and could count on a solid, stable church. Right? We had certain things like we talked about, the Arian heresy. In times when they didn't recognize.
Let's go back to, I think it was Pius V that wrote Horrendum illud Scalis. That horrible crime. It was a papal bull. Very much conditions like we have today. The difference was the reaction. He said that people that go into the clergy and are homosexual molesters, they get handed over to the secular authorities to be put to death, not even an ecclesiastical court. We have that now. Unfortunately, there are priests that molest children, and in some cases it gets covered up. In some places they drag their feet on prosecution. It's a totally different reaction to the same problem.
Right. Yeah, and so we are it's a time where we can look at these things, and again we can get it overwhelmed, and we can look at all of the evil and all of the issues going on in our world, and we look at all the problems that we can identify in the church, which are many and are real, or we can do something about it. And doing something about it is living your faith, doing exactly what we're doing right now, promoting Catholic media.
That's all you can do. I mean, you're not going to change anything big. The only thing you can change is yourself and your prayer life.
Yeah. And I mean, even in the midst of everything going on the Vigil of Sacred Heart tomorrow, it now looks like this decision by the Supreme Court justices may come to fruition. It's amazing. It's amazing to me that in a world where everything's completely lost, and we just might as well just turn around and just go grab our crucifix and our candle and our Bible and just pack it in the basement and just do our thing on our own and just let the world go to hell. The biggest evil of our time, abortion, is potentially about to be upset.
Oh, thank God.
Thank amazing God. Things. Yeah. Amazing our Lord, can do in the midst of strife, in the midst of the storm. He calms the sea. And of course we know, and let's be vigilant, right? We talked about this our last time, with the attacks that are going to come. They've already come, numerous attacks on churches, attacks on pro-life facilities. And they're going to come, if this decision goes through. So, men, be vigilant. Frank, what do you think? Going into the potential answer tomorrow by the Supreme Court justices, any closing thoughts here? I think we're running, right about on our time here.
I'll keep it quick. Just pray first of all, and then second of all, be aware. Like, just know people, notice things. If you feel like there's some kind of threat against a place, work with local police. Work with cops that are part of your parish. Just figure something out. Be aware, most of all.
That's right. All right. Well, awareness, is very important. Being aware of our faith and how we're living it, and be a man. Right? We say that all the time.
Be a man.
Esto vir. Be a man.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to this live broadcast for the Sacred Heart Share-a-thon for Carolina Catholic Media. Stay tuned because live Mass is coming up with Father Lucas Rossi. And again, I'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. with Father Colin Blatchford from Courage International, and at 11 with Dr. Ray Garundi from EWTN. Frank Cona, thank you so much, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. If you enjoyed this episode and have any questions or comments, or would like to come on the show and discuss your faith walk or any issue regarding the Catholic Church, send us an email at feedback@theobligationshow.com. You can also catch all of our previous episodes and all of the shows of Carolina Catholic Media at www.carolinacatholic.org. Click that donate button and we'd greatly appreciate it. There are also many opportunities to sponsor the show, the radio station, and the Catholic Men's Conference. Join Sensus Fidelium, Harmony Home Solutions, and Wallach Investments, who have pledged their funds to help keep Catholic radio on the air and relevant. Sensus Fidelium is a collection of Catholic homilies, apologetic videos, and other resources to grow in one true faith. They can be found online at www.sensusfidelium.com. Wallach Investment, LLC is a strategic moral investing firm committed to placing their clients' interests ahead of their own. Their mission is to be a force of good in their relationships to make the most of their clients' investment, giving them the time and confidence to pursue their mission. Contact Daniel Wallach at www.wallachinvestments.com for more information. For the Obligation Radio Show, the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas, and the Carolina Media Network, my name is Jason Murphy. God bless, and Esto Vida.